setting for some science fiction.
Yeah. Anyway, here's Malka.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight. It's really great to see so many people here. So my books, as you may or may not know, are about democracy. And so I like to start off, since I have the first book, INFOMOCRACY, and the sequel, I like to decide which one I'm going to read from by a vote. So how many people have read INFOMOCRACY? Still not half. Okay, so we're going to read from INFOMOCRACY. It's right here. Questions at the end, please.
What's your daughter's name?
Calix.
Callie.
So, my book INFOMOCRACY is set about 60 years in the future. In this future, the nation-state as we know it is mostly gone, although there are a couple of vestigial nation-states left around. What has replaced it is a system called micro-democracy, in which the basic jurisdictional unit is 100,000 people. So population, not area, so it could be a couple of really dense city blocks, or it could be several hundred square miles of rural area. Each of these sentinels, as they're called, of 100,000 people, can choose whatever government it wants, by vote, of any of the governments that exist anywhere in the world. So what you end up with is a government that will have lots of scattered constituents all over the world, and a city where you might change governments every couple of blocks. To facilitate all of this, we have a massive information management bureaucracy, kind of a cross between the UN and Google, which is called, I think very creatively, information. At the time when the book takes place, it's the third global election in this system, and the book follows a number of different governments that are campaigning to try and win more sentinels, and a number of different other characters. This section is about a character named Ken, who is a campaign worker, sort of kind of semi-clandestine campaign worker for a government that's called Policy First. And they're hoping against hope to win the supermajority, which is the government that has the most sentinels in the entire world. This section takes place in Jakarta. Though it is late, the road in front of the bar is still alight with the brake lights of a startling range of vehicles, of which only the motorcycles and the unicycles are moving. Ken decides to stumble back to his hotel room, a kilometer and a half away over uneven sidewalks. As he turns a corner, his antennae twitch. They are literal antennae, microfilaments that run from his earpiece, hooking over his ear and following his hair to the nape of his neck. Their wake-up twitch is designed to raise the hairs on the back of his head to mimic, physiologically, the feeling of being watched, in case the wearer is too drunk to remember the significance of the twitch. Ken remembers, but it doesn't necessarily mean he has to worry. The antennae keep an eye out behind him and alert him in case of abnormality, but that abnormality could be anything from a person's face appearing too many times in the crowd to a microscopic feed camera turning minutely to follow his path. He'll have to review the vid later to see what triggered them. For the moment, he doesn't look back, but attempts to heighten his own alcohol-dulled senses. It's dark where he's walking, and he's aware of an ever-so-slight rhythmic tilting below his feet. This part of the city floats. The crowded, crazy quilt neighborhoods are built on huge barges, sometimes made from recycled tires, sometimes illicitly made from the tires themselves, tied together into massive rafts. The seams tend to fall along the roads, and in the crevice bordering this narrow street, Ken can see the glint of seawater, or floodwater, or, judging by the smell, sewage. The neighborhood is dark but not empty. There is a tented warung up ahead on the left, the bare light bulbs illuminating a woman as she ladles sop buntuk from a vat, and 4 men crouched against a garden wall smoking next to it. Ken blinks twice to bring up the map of his location at eyeball projection level. He knows how to get to the hotel from here, but he wants to see if there are any likely ambush sites ahead and check what sentinel he's in. Philip Morris. Ken might not agree with their public health policies, but they have a pretty good reputation for security. He's unlikely to have to deal with a random mugging. But what if it's not random? He enjoys the taste of fear in his mouth, and it feels too soon when he arrives safely at the hotel. He's tempted to walk around the block, see if he can draw out whoever's tailing him, but his antennae haven't twitched since that first time. It was probably nothing, and besides, he's tired and drunk. Ken's first stop the next morning is at the Policy First office. It makes for an entertaining walk to work. Jakarta is hot and smells of durian. It's in season, apparently. Ken sees thorny slabs of it laid out on rough wooden tables along the road. He abstains until he reaches a sentinel governed by UNICEF, which is supposed to have better food hygiene standards, and buys some rujak from a pushcart. The vendor hands him a small paper envelope of typhoid inoculation with his purchase, which Ken rips open and sprinkles over his fruit with a chili peanut sauce. So much for hygiene. He uses an elongated toothpick to eat the pieces of papaya, starfruit, mango, and pineapple while he walks, but has to rush to finish before crossing the all but invisible border to the next sentinel, warned by dancing public service pop-ups along the walls that not only street vending but also street eating is illegal there. He considers going around that territory, but a glance at a map projection tells him it sits squarely in the middle of the shortest route to the office. He's already running late, and he's almost done with the rujak anyway. Besides, strolling through that uptight sentinel has its own pleasures. The tropical gardens are well tended, their fragrances painting the humid air, and the street vending prohibition doesn't extend to musicians, who seem to be encouraged. Ken does note that most of them are cleaner than average. Maybe a government program rather than free-flowing capitalism, although he doesn't bother to check. Given how dynamic and competitive the city is, Ken finds it surprising that the Policy First office in Jakarta isn't more impressive. Not physically. Policy First's aesthetic tends to be understated and geeky, representing its positioning as the wonk that cares about substance rather than flash. No, what Ken finds unimpressive is the management. Agus, the office head, keeps Ken waiting for 10 minutes and then talks at him from behind his desk, twiddling a pen while blandly refusing to give any help whatsoever. Liberty? I wouldn't have much on that beyond what you can find on information. Ken always reacts badly to Agus's particular brand of obfuscation, and he's starting to suspect that Agus knows this and is doing it on purpose. I'm asking you instead of searching information myself because I don't want people to be able to figure out what I'm looking for. What are you looking for? Agus asks, but it was probably just provocation because he doesn't wait for an answer. I'm asking because he'll be exposing me and this office by going through us, so I think I have a right to know. As the campaign office here, it makes sense for you to have a file on main competitors, Ken says. In fact, you don't have to do any new searches, just show me what you have already. Agus doesn't seem to like that much, probably because he hasn't been doing his job properly and doesn't have much opposition research to show. Well, he drawls, leaning back in his chair and swiveling it, we don't consider Liberty one of our main competitors for the supermajority. I mean, he adds to Ken's raised eyebrows, obviously they're a competitor, but we don't think that we've got a lot of overlap with them in terms of potential voters. On the global scale, we're focusing much more on Save Planet and economics, for example. Ken happens to know, no, he doesn't happen to know, he did his homework before coming, that's how he knows, that Save Planet doesn't have a single sentinel in Jakarta. I thought your job was to win sentinels in Jakarta, not to worry about the supermajority. I thought your job was to get Suzuki where he's going and then wait for him in the car, Agus shoots back. What are you doing here anyway? Some super secret errand for the big man, huh? Don't start checking up on me, son. Leave the real work to the experts. Ken thinks about hitting him. He can actually see it play out. Leaning over the desk, knuckles connecting with jaw. Not very hard, because he'd be leaning so far, but then it wouldn't take much to tip the chair over. The stupid pen flying across the room, Agus scrabbling up from the floor, calling security. Ken cuts it off there. He's not worried about his job. Suzuki appreciates a man of action, and has bailed him out from worse scrapes than this would be. But Ken doesn't like to call in favors from his boss, since he's aware that there might not be a bottomless supply. More importantly, he's unlikely to get the intel he wants that way. They're 14 days out from the election, the first debate is in 30 hours, and some whack shit is going down. He doesn't have time for fisticuffs. Yes, it is a job for Suzuki, and your boss works for him too. Why don't you give me whatever you have so that he doesn't come asking for it himself? Agus shrugs, and with a few motions, sends a file to Ken's workspace. Here, he says, tossing in a few others, so you can see what real campaigning looks like. Great, thanks, Ken says, pretty sure that they won't be helpful anyway. See you later. He heads for the door. Where are you going? August asks. To talk to some informants, Ken says, backing out the door. You know, real campaigning. Ken's antennae jiggle frantically as he walks away from the building, but he figures that's August staring daggers at him from the window and ignores it. Ken's antennae jump again as he's leaving his 4th interview that day, and he jumps too. His first thought is that he's glad he invested in the antennae, because he's so hyped from the conversation he just had that he probably wouldn't notice anything without them. His second thought is that because of that conversation, this must be the real thing. Maybe it was a trap to begin with. The Sentinel's secretary seemed eager to give the information to him. Or maybe the overworked woman wanted someone besides her clients to see it. Maybe whoever it is has been watching her office just in case. Or maybe they've been following him for a while. They figured out who he is. Or they don't care who he is, but they don't want anyone to know what he heard. Or what he has. It is nightfall. The sky a luminous blue above the city glow. And the Sentinel he's moving through now is a poor one with few streetlights, darkening fast. He glances at windows as he passes, but in the glare of the pop-ups, tuk-tuk headlights, and vendor sparklers, he can't make out anything in the shifting space behind him. Without stopping, Ken rubs his eyes as though tired, adjusting his antennae to broadcast video into the corner of his vision. He doesn't catch anything immediately, though. Policy First's transportation policy includes only environmentally neutral vehicles. Ken got here on a Sunway, borrowed from the office, solar-powered and with the top speed of a slow jog. It seemed perfect for the Jakarta traffic, which rarely gets above a slow jog anyway, and after the transport frustrations of the previous day, Ken thought it was necessary. It's also about as inconspicuous as elephant coitus, which is not unheard of in these streets, but still draws a crowd. As he gets back on, he notices a small switch labeled Auxiliary Speed, Emergency Use Only. He proceeds with caution at first. His mind is processing a million different things at once. The map of this and the surrounding sentinels superimposed over his vision. The small bit of the space behind him not hitting anyone with a snail's pace Sunway. And, most importantly, trying to figure out what to do with the intel he just received. His initial impulse is to send it to Suzuki right away. He even half composes a message muttered under his breath. Then he remembers that this is not the type of data that can be transmitted that way. Ken curses, accidentally leaving a trail of profanity in his message draft, and then closes it. He's not used to carrying heavy stacks of physical paper. He didn't even bring a bag. The Sunway has a small storage trunk on the back, but it would be too easy for someone to swipe from. Ken was holding the packet close to his ribs when he left the meeting, and he doesn't see any option other than to keep doing so. He shoves it into his waistband to free his hands and tucks his shirt over it. He considers sending a message hinting at what he's found. If he doesn't make it back, August can follow the trail. He discards that idea too. If there are people following him because of what he's just learned, they'll be expecting him to transmit it somehow. They might be able to snag it off information before it reaches its destination. Use the transmission point to find him if they haven't already. Besides, August would be sure to mess it up. Just as he's starting to think the antennae were overreacting, triggered by a random repeat passerby or innocent stares, he passes under a rare bank of solar-powered streetlights. And a few seconds later, he sees something in the vid. The glimmer of the lights passing over the carapace of a vehicle, a large vehicle. That in itself is not strange. What is odd is that the behemoth is not nudging people, donkeys, motorcycles, three-wheelers, and Sunways out of the way to pass. Ken risks a glance over his shoulder, and the headlights of the massive all-terrainer seem to wink at him. It is hanging back, maintaining a distance, inexplicable in this cutthroat traffic culture unless there's some other motive. His heart speeds up, adrenaline spurts. He has to think, though. There's no way he can outrun them. Ken maneuvers his Sunway around a donkey cart, then stays between it and a three-wheeler for a couple of seconds. When the slow pace of traffic gets him near enough to the corner, he swings the Sunway up onto the sidewalk, slides it around the corner into a dark, almost empty side street, and flips the auxiliary speed switch. The platform below him hums, then vibrates. He hears honking from the street behind him as the SUV tries to make it to the corner. Then his head jerks back in a gush of smoggy air as the Sunway takes off, bouncing along the imperfectly paved road. Ken gets a momentary thrill, although it's a little muffled by the effort he has to make not to get jounced off the thing. Then he's thrown against the handrail hard. He chokes, staring down at the dimness of the unlit pavement. His ribs hurt, although the package did cushion the impact some. He pushes himself back up to standing and hits the accelerator. And the Sunway gives a plaintive whine, shudders, and completely shuts down. Coughing, Ken glances behind him. He's only about 300 meters from the main road, where he can make out large, high-set headlights lurching around the corner toward him. He gives the Sunway one last shake, and when it doesn't react, he jumps off and runs. The street that Ken is running down is what is known in Jakarta as a jalan tikus, a mouse road. It is lit only by the faint luminescence coming from house windows and a few outdated, immobile advids. He starts to turn down a cross street, aiming back towards the main road he came off of. But when he notices on his map projection that it's actually blocked off by some kind of commercial complex, he has to duck back out again, dodging past two guards playing chess in front of a gate. The SUV's headlights are about a block behind him. He asks information how common plastic guns are in Jakarta, hoping that the answer will be reassuringly lower than he expects. In fact, this is a major underground trade point for them. He runs faster. Ken's map is helpfully calculating the quickest and most direct routes to his hotel, and he tells it to stop.
I'm gonna take her back.
Excuse me. Ken's map is helpfully calculating the quickest and most direct routes to his hotel, and he tells it to stop and use the Sentinel filter instead. He wants to find a government nearby with better law and order stats, or at least more streetlights. There's some alleyways that look too narrow for SUVs, but most of them have only one egress, and it's a pretty sure bet that whoever is trying to follow him is looking at the same map he is. Ken gets so caught up in checking the parameters of a neighboring Sentinel that he almost steps in an open sewer. Blinking away the after image of the map, he glances back at the headlights, gaining, and sprints towards the next turn, where the street jogs left. He dodges a motorcycle coming the opposite way and swings around the curve, blowing past a tiny kiosk, its only sign a red and white ad for Philip Morris products, glowing in the night and clouded with mosquitoes. A line of tuk-tuks sits beside it. Their drivers cluster in the light of the kiosk, most of them sporting examples of its merchandise between lips or dangling from their fingers. Ken ducks behind the tuk-tuks, but he's too scared to stop running, so he keeps sprinting forward in a crouch until the headlights of the SUV swing toward him. He hunkers down behind the black canvas hatch of the last tuk-tuk and holds his breath. In the white flash of the headlights, he can see the torn leather on the seat of the three-wheeler, the rusted lock clamped on the fuel tank. Then he's in darkness again, and the huge vehicle is sliding down the road beyond him. Ken waits until it passes the next turn. 10 meters past, they're slowing. They must have figured out he's not ahead of them. Before they can turn, he bolts. As soon as Ken breaks his cover, he sees the red reflection of the brake lights. They don't even try to turn around on the narrow road, just reverse hard over the potholes. Ken makes it to the turn first, skids around it, and takes off down the street as the SUV backs past the junction, stops, and lurches forward around the corner after him. But Ken has already crossed the border into the next Sentinel. The laws, which Ken already knows from his map, are posted in illuminated signs at the junction. Ken wonders whether his pursuers will read them or just plow through. He doesn't dare stop to find out. Then he hears a series of sharp bangs. He ducks and glances back over his shoulder. But it's just the tires exploding on the anti-vehicle protection in the street. This Sentinel belongs to a Green Party government that runs in Jakarta on a radical anti-traffic platform and is pedestrian only. In the dimness, the eco-government of the Sentinel is experimenting with wind-powered streetlights, and they're on the faint side. The SUV settles, like one of those beetles that gets eaten from the inside out. Then a door opens. Ken turns back around and concentrates on running. Whoever's in that SUV has legs too. But now he has a head start, and the darkness is in his favor. He loses himself in the side streets, using his eye-level map to avoid dead ends. What he wants to do is to lie low until they've given up or until daylight, but he doesn't have anywhere safe to go. He's tempted by a late-night warren whose patrons are slurping bowls of noodle soup, vegan according to information. As he's hovering in the shadows across the street, indecisive, a man significantly larger than Ken runs up, pauses, and darts inside the warren, glancing at faces. Ken turns and walks quickly in the direction the man came from, heart pounding. They know what he looks like. Without slowing, he plots away back to his hotel on the map, prioritizing busy and well-lit streets. Following it, he comes out of the Sentinel at an exit right on Sudirman Avenue. Vehicles dart by on the 6-lane road, and along the middle of it, the monorail tracks loom like the spine of some huge, useless, and long-dead animal. Ken considers hailing a public transportation crow, but in Jakarta these are few and overcrowded with out-of-date algorithms. Besides, if they're tracing his comms, they could find him that way. He's got an old-fashioned cargo, he might as well get home the old-fashioned way. He flags a cab and disappears into the anonymous crawl of Jakarta traffic.